Keaton, are you gonna put the work session agenda up?
There it is right now.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
And we're recording, so whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, I don't know why I'm not on.
We can hear you. We just
Yeah,
can't see you.
You can hear me?
yeah, you got to turn your video on.
Lower left corner.
The
There we go.
Camera's not working.
I just asked you to start the video, Basil. I don't know if a prompt came up, but if you click on that, it should work. Al, I'm sorry about that. I asked you.
Okay, there I am.
That's okay, I said later.
Hello.
Hi. Okay,
Hey,
so
Basil.
John isn't going to be able to join us tonight, so we can get started. And Ben is also out. So, all right, so let's get started. So welcome to the work session for July 13th. We have no guests this evening. Anyone get any correspondence that they would like to discuss?
I don't have any.
No.
I just have one. Then I had a woman who reached out to me. There's a sidewalk that's uneven on Milton Street, and she was walking and she fell. So Ben's aware of it, and they're going to be getting that taken care of this week. So I don't know if you guys have seen them out, but they've been using that sidewalk grinding machine.
Yeah.
You know, fixing the sidewalks that have been heaved by trees, but it's kind of pretty amazing what that machine can do, because it really does even out those tripping hazards. So
Did a nice job in front of our house.
yeah, great. Yeah. So any other correspondence, anyone?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Did everyone see the email that I forwarded from Trey Meeser regarding the WBA's planned event that was supposed to occur in July and now is going to wait until September?
Yep.
Yes.
Saw that.
Yeah,
All right.
we saw that.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. That's all I had for correspondence.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let's move on to grants updates. Keaton, I know you had a meeting yesterday, I believe, or today at 9:30.
Yes. Yes. I try to be off on Sundays.
Do we allow that in the village? We all work on Sundays. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you guys discuss?
Sure. So right now, I met with Bernie and Anthony via Zoom today. And right now, there's not much movement on any of the state or federal grants and monies because of the situation we're in. But it's he and everyone he's talked with anticipates that the opening of CFA and some other grants that we would go for would be sometime in August or early September. And it's going to be a very quick period. Usually for CFA, we'd have at least 8 weeks. Now he said, look for probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Cala a boca, porra.
Everybody hear that?
Yes.
It was somebody new came on. I think she just didn't mute, but she's muted now.
Okay.
Do we know do we know anything about what their focus is on this year?
Well, one new thing that is going to come from federal funding and then filter through the states would be of real help to us. It's called the Moving Forward Act, and it's all about improving infrastructure. And Bernie believes that this would be a great help to us as far as the sewer project. He said the sewer project would be a great fit for this. $1.5 trillion would be available through this federal funded, state filtered grant. So he believes that should be released sometime in August. And we have a really good start on, obviously, on a lot of the work for that. Another thing that he mentioned was there should be about $500 billion for transportation through federal and state funding. This this could include connecting our sidewalks, kind of a added,
Set up added,
an added safe routes to school bonus. So there was a user iPhone 10. I put them in the waiting room for right now. I'm not sure what was going on. So
Okay.
situation is. As far as the CFA, he said we could do, the priority project would be flood risk management, which is where we could possibly put in the holes that are coming in the wall against the creek. It's fundable up to 75%.
borrow your truck to pick up Fred?
We would only need 25%. So, so that would be a great help too.
Well, now that grant money though, with regards to the wall, those walls are not public walls.
Right. So he suggested if we could work maybe through the office on getting an easement that would allow us to manage and work on that wall to maintain it whenever possible. That would give the people at CFA who are reviewing the CFA an indication that we're real serious about this, and B, obviously then we could get in there and do what we needed to do. He wondered if it was possible to have an engineer get an estimate, kind of take a look at it, see what he thought, and at least write some numbers down so we can get an idea of a budget. I'll kind of get with Ben on that, and we can kind of go from there. Bernie suggested it be a permanent easement. That way, if there is any other work that comes up along that way after construction is complete, that way we would still have access to it.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, this is an interesting question because it goes way beyond the opportunity to get funding, though. It's a question of do we want to adopt that maintenance burden for
Right.
multiple individual property owners, including,
That,
you know,
that's a key question.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, because part of the wall, like on the north side, or sorry, the south side of Main Street is owned by Doug Schutte along the Creek View and the properties behind it there along Ed Young's
Yeah.
parking lot. You know, part of it's owned by Touch of Brass, part of it's owned by 4 or 5 individual, you know, single-family homeowners. Now, I mean, as far as the Ganges property in particular, the truth is they need a mason who's willing to work in the creek.
Right.
There really
Oh.
isn't anything truly structurally problematic at that location right now. It's just someone who's willing to actually get in there and rebuild that wall in place and then mortar it all up again. You know, and unfortunately, access is the real hindrance.
Right.
You know, so while it's a financial burden for the individual property owner, I guess the question becomes, is it the type of burden that the village residents should share? Because this grant money that might be available this year might be available, but if we negotiate that access easement for maintenance and repair and we don't get that grant, then we've just handcuffed ourselves without an ability to be responsible.
Right. That's a good point to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not interested in taking on that financial burden for the village residents, for those creek walls. That's private property. Those folks, when they purchased their properties, I'm guessing would have had to have gotten a survey, just like any other property transfer ownership would require. And they would be quite knowledgeable at that time that that is their property and it's their responsibility. So that's where I'm at with it.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
What were you gonna say, Chip?
Oh, I was gonna say, obviously, there would be a problem if the village were just to gratuitously take on that maintenance obligation, particularly in perpetuity. That's not to say that the village could not, and this I think is really, conceivably determine that there's a value that that wall or those walls might constitute an asset. But certainly there would be an issue, I mean, with the village just saying we're basically just going to take on a responsibility for maintaining private property. That's a serious constitutional problem. But the other thing I was going to say is I do think it's possible, at least, I mean, I'd want to think about it a little bit more or research it if unless it's something the village board just is absolutely not interested in, which is fine. But if it were, we might be able to have an easement that would not necessarily constitute an obligation. In other words, it gives us the right, but not the obligation to maintain or to do work on those walls. So there, it's something, if the village was interested in exploring that as a grant opportunity, we could look at trying to structure it in a way that would not be a assumption of responsibility, an unconstitutional assumption of responsibility for maintaining private property.
I was going to say, I mean, isn't it kind of like the safe routes to school potentially, where the funds came, they paid for somebody's sidewalks, but the village is no longer responsible after the sidewalks are needing replacement, correct, Chip, when we did that?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. The whole sidewalk situation, as the board knows, is a little weird because it really is, according to our code, the financial responsibility of the homeowner to install those and construct them and to maintain them. But the village has historically used grant money to construct those sidewalks. But they are in the right of way generally. So we do have sort of some ownership interest in them. It's just that by code, we make maintenance responsibility the responsibility of the homeowner or the property owner.
If the board wants, I can kind of draft up some notes from my meeting today with Bernie. And because it was done via Zoom, I have the video too. So what I was thinking is, because it's July and we generally be thinking about this at reorg time, but obviously reorg is pushed out until a few months from now. What we usually do is we kind of come up with our goals for the year. Our new year has technically begun, but we don't really obviously feel like it. So what I was thinking is maybe for the next meeting in 2 weeks, the work session could consist of the board goals for the year and kind of looking at what projects we might want to do. And we should know more, hopefully by that time, on maybe the release date or start date for these for the grant cycle.
Yeah.
Also, is it already too soon, based on where Wendy's at with the LWRP?
Correct, it is. It is
Okay.
definitely way too soon. Yeah.
Okay.
So that it's unfortunate, but it's not to say that that these grants don't happen again next year. It would be nice to grab it this year, but if we're not ready, obviously it's probably safer to wait so that we don't put ourselves in a bad position going for, as you said, Matt, going for an easement that we kind of get stuck with. So.
Okay.
He did mention the DRI probably will not happen this year. I don't know if that's a funding shortage or they're just busy on other projects, but DRI will not be occurring this year. He fully believes. What's the goals I mentioned? I think that's all from today's meeting that we kind of went over. It was just a quick 20-minute catch up, kind of went through a bunch of things. But like I said, I can give everybody the notes on this, and that way we kind of have a starting point for if everyone is okay with putting the board village goals on the next work session.
Okay.
I think
Sounds
that's
good.
a good idea, and I think we should start, maybe Keaton, do you want to just kick off an email to everyone?
Sure.
Just stating, start circulating or putting down your top 3 ideas. So
Okay.
mine, I can tell you, are parks, sidewalks, and sewer. That's where my head's at. So, but, let's hear from everybody else on the board, where everyone is, and we should come up with some kind of course and see where we are September then after the election.
Yeah.
With who we have a new board member, or maybe we won't, I don't know, and see what their direction is then too.
Perfect. I can do that.
Great, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so let's go, just the agenda is pretty simple tonight. Anybody have any questions on it before we move on?
I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Do you want that up on the screen? I can scroll.
Yeah, why don't you just pull it up
Yeah,
quickly?
sure. Go ahead
Sure.
and put it up, just so everybody can take a look and see what's on. If there's any questions, go through them now. We do have to go into executive session tonight to discuss the two issues, the employment of a specific individual and a pending litigation matter. So Keaton's got that all set up for us to head in. Just the, the board and Chip and Judy.
Okay.
All right, so nothing then with our agenda, so let's.
I can barely hear you, Deb.
Well,
Yeah,
let's go.
you're,
If you don't have any questions or comments for the agenda, let's move into the rest of the work session.
Perfect.
I've
Okay,
got
let's
my
go.
Volume up full pretty much, so I'm not sure what. And that's the first,
Better.
Matt, that somebody has said, Deb, I can't hear you.
I know.
It is,
It's
it
actually,
is better now.
let me just say, I wasn't complaining.
Oh, oh.
Okay.
You listen. Oh, that's good. All right, so, all right, trash pickup, contract with Modern. So Keaton and I had talked about the ongoing issue. Keaton's here, every day, and he hears the calls coming in, I'm sure. And the majority of calls that we're getting in the front office regard garbage, garbage not getting picked up, whatever the case, which is usually the case. So I just kind of wanted to have a conversation. We do have a shared services contract with Modern that we share with the town of Amherst. And I talked to Ben today, and I believe that was negotiated about 3 years ago. So I think that might be coming up in the near future here for renegotiation. And the reason that we went with Modern is that they were lowest bid when this all took place. So
Well, wasn't that a joint, don't we do that jointly with the town?
that's what
Yes.
with the town. Yep, a joint contract, right, with the town.
Yes.
So, so here's, just an issue for me, Wednesday night is my trash night, and, Thursday morning is supposed to be pickup for the south of the village. And I did put out a furniture item, and it didn't get picked up. So I called on Saturday, and she apologized, and she assured me the truck would be sent today. So it's still sitting at the curb today. So I just I just don't know what gives. Like, if it's part of our contract with them and they're supposed to be picking up furniture and not our Department of Public Works, then they need to pick up the furniture.
Right.
That's every week. They pick up both garbage and trash. They're
Right.
supposed
So-
to.
They drove, they didn't. So, and then, it's just, you've got unsightly furniture sitting at the curb for over a week. And it just doesn't look very becoming when people are driving into the village. And I don't understand what the issue is.
Yeah, having started this little revolution a couple of weeks ago there, it seems that Modern has decided that there is zero wiggle room on their rules and regulations. They're very black and white, very 0 and 1, and their staff have been instructed, that if it does not fit into their prescriptive boxes and dimensions and, requirements, that it is not to be touched. So, like, my issue with the recycling comes up because I purchased one of the 50-gallon garbage totes like 12 or 15 years ago as a recycling tote when they first made the switch from the small green boxes to the full-size rolling totes. And I bought one from the village before the village even had the little green ones that we have now. And I have been using it every week for a decade plus without a single problem. And suddenly, 4 weeks ago, it was the wrong size tote, and the person on the truck said, I can't pick that up, and I'm leaving it there. And they didn't leave a note, and they didn't leave, there was no discussion. It was just abandoned on the curb week after week after week. So finally I made a stink, and and of course it was the day I go back to work, but when the garbage pickup arrived and they saw my big cardboard box saying like, thanks for picking up my garbage, they called Lauren out to the street, and he apologized profusely for having it sit there and not be picked up, explained that it was, the wrong size tote and therefore the staff wasn't going to pick it up, and then said, I'll take care of it for you, and put 3 weeks worth of recycling into the back of the garbage truck.
I'm a little confused about the size of the tote because Amherst offered 3 sizes. When they did the recycling totes, they made these little ones for basically older people, your basic 60-gallon one, and then the 90-gallon one. Because I have a 90-gallon one myself for the town. It's the same contract, so I don't know why they wouldn't pick that up.
Because they don't like the village.
Apparently not. We pay our bill on
Who
time.
doesn't like the village E2?
I will
Yeah,
send
no,
an email to
I mean,
That makes no sense. We're
in
the
talking-
moneymaker for them.
clarification on that.
we're really not. So in talking to Ben, part of the problem is, we can make as much of a stink as we want. We can not renew their contract. We can negotiate with someone else, whatever. But there's only a handful of companies that do this work.
Right.
We do not have anywhere near the bargaining power that the town of Amherst has. So there's no way we're ever going to get the rates that we get today negotiating by ourselves. And then secondly, the village and its narrow streets and tight housing and everything and its density make their pickup process slower. So they're actually making less money per hour working in the village than they are working in the town with the larger subdivisions and, wider streets and whatnot. So, to Ben's quote, they don't like the village because we cost them money. And so they put in the absolute minimum effort. And it just feels like in the last 12 to 15 weeks, and maybe we're all just home more now, and therefore we're more aware of it, more sensitive to it, whatever. But it feels like since, the pandemic started this last 4 months, 5 months, that the minimum effort is less than it's ever been. And there does seem to be a great deal of inconsistency. Every single person I've talked to on my street and around, they all have some anecdotal story about, well, I used to put this stuff out all the time and they would just take it and now they won't. And I don't understand what happened. And, when it just so happened that the week that I was having this problem with the recycling, we posted on the Facebook page that Modern would like to remind all the residents of the requirements. And it's like, Modern should not be quite so stringent if they're just going to drop the hammer like this. I mean, there's got to be, it can't be just we're changing the way we're doing it, and we've spoiled you for 4 years, and now suddenly we're going to change our tack. It's and the worst part is we literally can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Can't force them to be better, and threatening to cancel the contract or renegotiate, they probably welcome it.
I thought about this for the past few days, and Hazel and I talked about it this morning. Hazel, when she's been up front at the clerk's office filling in on phone calls and stuff, she gets phone calls a lot, and a lot of the time it's Modern being quite finicky and, or just being forgetful, or just plain not going down the street, sometimes missing a whole street, Catherine told me today. And I guess the only way that I could think of that we could improve things for the residents would be to maybe do some sort of educational component, whether it's just, you know, making a quick 30, 45-second video. You know, I could make it fun and lighthearted, you know, maybe, you know, because, you know, when you throw out something one week and it's okay, and then the next week it's not, it's the inconsistency that's getting everybody confused. So if we could get on the same page as what Modern wants, we could throw out that educational component to everybody. You know, I told Hazel this morning, I said, you know, maybe it's like in Niagara Falls 4 or 5 years ago, they used that Totes My Goats.
Scariest mascot ever conceived.
Absolutely. But people's attention, I'm not saying we need to go that far, that route, but it got people's attention. It got them in the mind of recycling, you know. So it educated them. So if we could do something fun and lighthearted, not with a scary mask or anything like that, but if we could, you know, just, you know, I could even do it on, you know, with PowerPoint and turn it into an MP4 video, and, you know, it could be, you know, picking up garbage and kind of animated.
I like that. I think you should do
don't know,
that.
I don't,
like
A
you
little
like that idea? I was gonna say, I feel like this isn't something that we should be doing.
Well, I
don't disagree with that either.
agree. Okay, so yes, Matt, you're correct, because we do have a contract with Modern, and like, you know, Thursday, if you put out furniture, it should get picked up on garbage day, because that's part of our contract.
Right.
And, but, you know, you know, not that that's an education of our residents, because according to our system, it is supposed to be picked up, but I don't know. I mean, how, I guess, you know, what would it hurt by putting that together, by putting it out there?
Oh, I don't think it would hurt. I just, you know, I feel like we're accepting the burden of someone else's responsibility.
Well, the point is, though, is they're not taking responsibility.
I know, but how does
You
this
know.
how does this improve that situation? I mean, what can we do to encourage our contractor to fulfill their contractual obligations? What I mean, here, has anybody talked to the town?
No.
They have problems too.
On this
I
note,
don't know that they're as bad as ours, but they are
I mean,
having
because it
issues
can't be,
also.
exactly, it can't, this issue cannot be created at the village line and cease at the village line on the other end.
Of course not.
So, I mean, if we're having these issues, the town's having these issues. So
you know what,
the two of us,
I'm on a street that splits between the town and the village. I can walk 3 doors over and ask a couple people.
yeah, I mean,
See how they're doing in the town part.
Well,
Well, I
I
mean,
can
so-
tell you that knowing the supervisor's assistant fairly well, she says that they do get quite a few calls about Modern, and they're just terrible. So it's not just a village issue.
so, I mean, so we should be approaching the town and saying, we're
Yeah.
doing this as a shared services. What's your intention? Well, how do you want to handle this? How do we flex our collective muscles?
Mhm.
You know, because like it or not, they're the big brother. So, you know, we gotta.
All right, so let me do this. Keaton, hold off on the video.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
you know, a good plan. I'll reach out tomorrow to the town and see what we can do together.
And, you know, we've found that there's times where, you know, it's a residential mistake too. There was a gentleman the other day, he was using his recycle tote as the garbage tote.
Mhm.
And, you know, Modern now, with being very strict with their rules, they didn't want to take it, you know. We helped the resident out, and now everything's okay. You know, we're good. He's got a new tote. He's not going to use the recycle tote anymore. Modern picked it up. you know, I had to make a plea. I said, you know, just please pick up this guy's garbage. It's 90 degrees outside, and we don't need another situation caused by garbage sitting in the heat. And, you know, they came back with a recovery truck on Friday, and they got it. But, you know, there's times like that where it's, you know, we know it's a residential mistake, you know, but, you know, we're getting a mixture of calls, you know. We've kind of had to do some detective work here and there. There was a resident who told Catherine that she put a handful of grass on top of her garbage inside the tote. Modern looked in, saw that there was garbage inside the tote, didn't want to take it. Whether or not it was a handful or a shovelful, you know, it doesn't matter. Their rule is their rule, and they're being strict. And I can't defend either side. But what we can do is maybe try to bridge that gap, you know, and, you know, make sure that the residents are educated on how strict Modern is being.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good comment. I mean, you know, to that end, for instance, we had some yard waste, you know, like you say, a handful of stuff. It was an armful of, you know, old leaves or something that we threw in the garbage tote last week. And they dumped the tote, and everything that was on top of the leaves went into the garbage, into the truck. But from the leaves down, the tote was left unemptied.
Yeah.
I put it back out the following week. The whole tote was empty. So, you know, there's inconsistency in implementation. There's inconsistency in messaging. There's, you know, it's across the board. And so, like, if Modern wants to be strict in enforcing their rules, that's fine. Then they should be applying that uniformly across not just the village, but the town, all of their contracts. More importantly, they should have sent us a communication to that effect. You know, this has been a little willy-nilly over the years, and we can't accept this anymore. We have to tighten this up. And then there could have been some communication. There could have been some warning. We, you know, especially this year, people have been working in their yards more than ever before because literally they have the time to do it. There's been a lot more yard waste, a lot more, you know, stuff sitting on the curb because, oh, it doesn't fit our rules, you know. So.
All right, well, let's just go. I'll call the town. Like I said, I'll call them tomorrow, and I'll see what, if anything, we can do. And, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't think that video is a bad idea because I do agree with Keaton. I think a lot of it is resident education. And so, you know, that would be a service that we're providing to our residents by giving them the knowledge to be successful when they put their garbage out.
Because the more successful the resident is,
The more successful.
unsuccessful
that
we know
means,
Modern
you know,
is.
Catherine isn't spending, you know, day in and day out, you know, answering calls about garbage not getting picked up. I mean, it's, you know.
Right. Or as Keaton says, when the garbage doesn't get picked up, if we're doing everything to Hoyle and the garbage still doesn't get picked up, then we know it's a service issue.
Well, which is what I have with them. I mean, I have
Right.
a true service issue. You know, it's, the timing just couldn't be worse, you know, because, you know, I'm closing this week. So there's like a, you know, an old sofa and 2 area rugs sitting at the curb for the new owners. So.
Getting wet too.
Oh, it's been rained on like, you know, 10 times by now, and, you know, it stinks.
Really
and
heavy.
it's just, you know, it's
All
awful,
right.
but, all right, so that's the plan, and we'll see
Okay.
what can happen. And go from
Sounds
there.
good.
Okay.
The old business, Chip, we haven't heard back from the
No.
cable franchise, right?
I have not heard anything from him. I assume you haven't either.
I haven't either, so we'll move on. We're just kind of in holding pattern, waiting to hear back. And then the format of future village board meetings, we are now extended to not have to meet in person until August.
5th, I think, 4th or 5th.
Yeah, August 5th, I think.
It'll be your August. Well, when's the board meeting in August?
August
Second
10th.
Monday.
Or the
I mean-
the 24th, that's right, because we only have one.
Yeah,
meeting in
but
August.
you know, it very well may get extended again. I wouldn't frankly be surprised if it gets extended through the end of the year, given what's happening nationally, even though what's happening, but who knows? Unfortunately, the governor has gotten into this pattern of not acting on those particular executive orders until like the day before they expire. So
Okay.
we're just gonna have to play it by ear. I mean,
See,
if it is not extended, then I do think we'll have to come up with procedures to make sure that that we're following the appropriate health guidelines for in-person attendance. But we're not gonna. We just don't know right now. I mean, we're fine, obviously, for the second July meeting to do what we've been doing. But if we haven't heard anything by that meeting, maybe we should be talking about contingencies for thereafter.
well, so towards that end, I mean, whether it's the first meeting in August or the first meeting in September, at some point, this is going to end, right? And we're going to be back. We're going to be back in the same room together. So
We hope so.
yeah, I mean, in theory, right? So in the meantime, we should probably have that plan in place so that we're not, so we're being proactive, we're not being reactive in the clutch in advance of that first meeting. So I guess my question would be, first thinking about the dais, right? So we can't be 6 feet apart on the dais, so should we be having DPW fabricating some sort of plexiglass like partitioning like they're doing at bars between the seats? I've seen them on videos of other councils and stuff too, where they've got, some sort of a wall between each seat that you can see through, but is physically blocking you so that we're not all wearing masks on the dais. Or are we all wearing masks on the dais?
I think we're all wearing masks on the dais. I don't know.
We can spread out a little. I don't think we can get 6 feet though.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a couple people, 2 people or 3 sit on the dais and then, the other 2
Below.
at a table. I mean,
That's true.
I consider it a table. I don't, need, it doesn't
And-
matter. to
and-
me.
We mentioned this before, but even if you guys need to meet in person, staff and me, we don't need to be there in person. We could participate via Zoom to just
Mhm.
lessen the overall density in the room as well.
Okay. Well, I mean, if that's, those are the easy answers, then yeah. I mean, because we could even, to that extent, we could even do work session set up like you were saying, Deb, where 2 of us are at a table on the floor and 3 of us are on the dais, and you can
Yeah.
maintain good distance and,
Yeah. And I think, we are, I think the best approach is because we're going to require anybody coming in to wear masks, just like we do now, somebody comes to Village Hall. So I think, to lead by example, we will just all be wearing masks, and we will require that anybody coming to attend our meetings has a mask on as well. We'll have hand sanitizer at the entrance so people can hand sanitize before they come in, and then, we'll social distance the seats, which won't leave for a lot of room, but we'll encourage people. I think Keaton, you were saying you could set up like a live link too, where people could watch the meeting, right? So they don't
Yeah.
have to physically come in.
Correct. Yep.
So we could encourage people who don't feel comfortable, maybe being in, closer proximity than 6 feet, to, participate via Zoom.
The only concern I have, not that I'm against masks, obviously, but with the mask in the building, trying to record, I know the couple of Facebook Lives I've done for the farmer's market, I had my mask on and people, they can't understand you. It muffles it so much, it doesn't pick up enough audio. So I don't know how we handle it so that they can hear us.
Okay.
And by the way, so again, just to reiterate the point, even if when the executive order expires, whenever that is, what we need to allow or what we'll need to do is the board will have to meet in person, or if you're meeting remotely, wherever you're meeting has to be open to the public, like your home or wherever you may be. And that's already in the open meetings law.
I think we can make it work in Village Hall.
Yeah, so, but
Yeah, I
I just
think we
want
can.
to, the point I want to make is, again, you need to be there and it needs to be open to the public. We have to allow the public to attend. That doesn't mean we can't control occupancy and control the way they are, how many people can come in and how close they can be to each other and whether or not they have to wear masks and all those things. But I just want to, again, you certainly can, there is absolutely no reason you cannot Zoom every meeting going forward if you want and allow people to participate that way. If the village thinks that's doable for the public to participate, or staff for that matter. Obviously, I think once we get past this, I assume you're gonna want the staff there, but there is no prohibition under the open meetings law to use this sort of technology to allow the public to participate. The limitations of the open meeting law are the way you all participate, and you have to allow people to attend in person, but that doesn't mean you can't also allow people to participate
Right.
remotely.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just one other thing, I mean, as a practical matter, it's not gonna, I don't think, make that much difference for us, but I don't know whether any of you got NICOM's email about this the other day. The governor came out with an interpretation of the prohibition on in-person public hearings. Everybody had interpreted that executive order 20215 as being extended also through August 5th. But the governor's office claims that no, the original 20215 was never extended, and therefore you can hold in-person public hearings anytime after June 1st. Frankly, that's I have no idea how they come up with that interpretation, but be that as it may, that's their position. So where we are now with respect to public hearings is we could have an in-person public hearing now if we wanted, according to the governor's office. But we don't have to, so long as 202.1, which authorizes Zoom meetings generally for public meetings like this, is extended. So, for instance, I don't know whether there's going to be a public hearing at the next village board meeting, but if there were, we could do that in person or we could do it via Zoom, where we are right now. I don't think there's any other public hearings for any of the other boards coming. I mean, the ZBA already had their meeting this month. So anyway, that was just sort of a curveball that came out of nowhere late last week that took everybody by surprise.
Okay.
As I said, as a practical matter, I don't think it really is necessarily going to change anything that we're doing, but just so the village board is aware, supposedly we're free to have in-person public hearings now,
Okay.
subject to all the things we were just talking about, still, appropriate health procedures.
Okay, any more comments on future board meetings, or do you want to move on? Okay. All right, Basil, do you have anything for work session to discuss?
Just one item. The art and culture folks were talking about trying to come up with some kind of an event in late August to try to give some deference to the new attitudes that are in the country now, and they're trying to come up with an approach of either the history of jazz or the history of Black Americans, something at Island Park in late August. They haven't fully thought through how it's going to work yet, but one of the ideas was maybe having 2 or 3 storytellers at different stations, so you don't have too many people. Because whatever we do, we know we have to maintain the social distancing. So that makes it a little difficult to put together, but that's what they're thinking at the moment, just so you're all aware of it. Something of that nature.
I was reading the minutes on that. It was nice to hear they were thinking about some stuff.
But just so, you know, again, under current, and these things could change at the whim of the governor. But right now, any gathering like that would have to be capped at 50 people.
Right.
I know it would be outdoors. Certainly it would be, everybody would have to be masked. And we haven't thought through, or the group hasn't thought through yet, how to handle the social distancing part of it. That's why they were thinking of maybe stations, maybe several stations, that no more than 8 or 10 could go to any one station at any one time to be able to maintain that distance. So it's a work in progress at the moment, just so you're all aware of it.
Yeah, either maybe stations,
Any
or
comments? Go ahead.
if you were to like stagger start times of whatever event it might be, whether it's you know, a couple people playing jazz music or a couple people, you know, giving like a lecture. You know, if one's at 1 o'clock and another one's at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and then maybe you could sign up ahead of time. You know, we could make like a have enough time, we could make a reservation thing through the website, and then people could just reserve a time to go to the event.
Keaton, I'm going to pass that thought on to them, because that
Okay.
maybe something like that would make it more doable.
Yeah, sure.
And I think
Where are
too,
they thinking of hosting this?
Island Park.
Island Park.
I'd suggest South Long.
Well, I'm not sure which area is bigger. I think that Michelle looked at the regulation. I guess if it's outdoors, you can only occupy 33% of what you normally would have used, or the only number of people could be 33% of what the capacity of that area would be.
Right.
Things of that
South Long
nature.
South Long is physically larger and also has multiple points of entry.
I'll throw that out also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what we could do, Matt and Keaton and Basil, is that
Yeah.
we could do our layout that we were talking about for movies in the park, and social distancing that way, and maybe just do you know, spray paint crosses or something on, you know, spaces where you can occupy with your family to watch, and you just bring your own chairs and you mic whatever the talk or jazz ensemble is. So there's certainly some ways around it, I think.
Maybe they would move, and the families, if there are families, would stay put. We'll
Good
hash
idea.
this out some more.
That's a real good idea, because then it prevents people from getting into jumbled crowds. Once they get there, they don't need to move, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was kind of my thought, was like treat it like like we were going to do movie night, you know, create spaces, and if your family's 3 to 4 people, then you go get in your space and stay in your space.
Yep.
Right. And then if you want to leave, you go down the aisle and leave or whatever. So.
Well, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thanks for your thoughts.
Yeah. Okay, Matt?
So we got plenty of volunteers for our playground subcommittee. In fact, more than we arguably needed. Several new faces and names that, you know, have never been at least active that I'm aware of. Actually, several from just the town, not even the village. We're pulling together the kickoff meeting for the subcommittee this week. We've got 2 responses so far. Looks like it's probably going to be Thursday evening at Island Park in the pavilion at 7 o'clock. But that date has yet to be confirmed. But then once once that kicks off, the ball will get rolling. That will be the day that during that meeting, we will select the build date and then assign roles for the subcommittee to be responsible for, being, getting more volunteers, taking care of the food for that day, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll also be reviewing the proposed playground that was used as the decider for the Parks Committee, but then also look at the proposed equipment, and if there's any, we can swap this out for this one. Ben, from Parkitects will go over that with the committee, and they might say, oh, well, we should have another one of these instead of those, and they'll refine the design a little bit. And then we'll schedule probably 3 more meetings between this week and the build date, which is some weekend in September. And they'll refine color selection, and then Ben will place the order. And in the meantime, we'll be coordinating with DPW and getting their work started, on the appropriate date at that time, and later on in, end of August, early September. And hopefully, the big push will be to wrangle volunteers. We're going to need probably 100 bodies that day. So, probably 20 people, between 10 and 20 people on the Friday, and up to 100 people on that Saturday. And depending on how much the work gets, how many people show up and how quickly the work gets done, and what DPW is doing and whatnot, we may be able to get it done in shorter time. But right now, Parkitects is saying assume 8 to 4 or something like that on Saturday. So all of that will be refined in the future, and I'll keep you up to date.
Okay, so where are we with that SAM grant?
Oh, I will check on that this week. I haven't heard anything since we submitted the final paperwork weeks ago, so I'll check on that.
Okay, thanks, Keaton.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, good work organizing that, Matt. That sounds like you've got that all laid out.
Well, we hope. So then, speaking of the SAM grant and parks in general, so Keaton went to this meeting with the depot last week,
Yes.
and I was unfortunately unable to attend that. I intended to go, but couldn't get out of work. So right now, it sounds to me like they're, correct me if I'm wrong here, Keaton, but based on your synopsis that you sent, it sounds like, they're moving forward with this thing, and they're trying to fundraise hard and heavy.
Yes.
And they're looking to close the gap for $100,000, right?
Correct. Yes.
So the town budgeted 50 grand towards that effort.
Right.
And we've budgeted, quite a few dollars towards our parks improvements. And part of that parks plan was the expansion and acquisition of that engine and whatnot. So I'm throwing out to the board the idea that because there is money in the parks line for these types of improvements specifically, that while we could not possibly match the town's generosity, we could offer 30 grand towards that acquisition.
Okay, so I want to talk to Chip about that.
I don't know about that exact number yet, but
Well-
shouldn't we also be pursuing tourism grants?
Well, sure, but these grants are not necessarily available this year because most of especially from the state level, because there's a $16 billion hole in their budget right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 2 points that I have, I guess for Chip is the first question. Would that be, is that okay as far as the gifting goes? Because they are a not-for-profit. So that's my first question. And then my comment on that is that, we are village residents as well as town residents. So I almost feel like the town has given 50, which is a really generous amount. And so I almost feel like if we're calling on our residents now to give additional, it's almost like double dipping. And I just like, I feel okay with saying no to that. and thirdly, just as you all know, I mean, when I look around at our parks, we have so many improvements that we need to do. 30,000 would go a long way for us. We're working with a small budget. And Matt, as you very well know, it's taken, years for us to give any kind of money into a budget for the parks line that actually would account for any type of parks project. So that's kind of where I'm at with this.
All very reasonable and fair. Yeah.
So Chip, what about the gifting though? I guess that's.
So,
my first one.
yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, what organization are we talking about here? What not-for-profit organization?
It's the Western New York Railroad Society, the guys that run the depot.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I mean, there is no not-for-profit exemption. The Constitution prohibits gifts of public resources to private entities. Not-for-profit or for-profit, doesn't matter. Now, there are certain exceptions to that, but as a general matter, that would be a problem. We really can't be giving money to private entities.
So how's the town giving them $50,000?
You'll have to ask the town.
And that is
They
a
found a
very
way.
good question that as a town resident too, I would love an answer to.
I
So
believe
this is why I just can't like,
Now, so, I mean, look, I'm just telling, so that is the rule in New York State, and it's enshrined in the New York State Constitution. Does it get violated all the time? Sure does. Mostly by the state of New York. Because that prohibition applies to state government as well as it does to local government.
Yep.
And they may be doing it, the state often does it through one of their agencies, Empire State Development or something like that. And there's case law that gets into that whole issue, whether that's okay. But we don't have that sort of quasi-governmental arm. We don't have like a LDC or something like that we might be able to do that sort of thing. The town, that maybe they're doing it through their IDA. I don't know. I don't know. We'd have to ask the town how they're doing that.
All right, well, so then another idea or suggestion that maybe isn't a numerical value or something, Teton, what did they say with regards to site preparation to receive the engine?
Yeah, they mentioned that there are a few things, including like landscaping. There's a tree that needs to be removed. It's actually, it's not, it's an older tree, but it's not a super large tree. It is between the depot and where the first car is. And that's where they want to put the engine. So this tree and its roots and everything are in the way of where they would put the engine.
And now that, so, I mean, that's our property. I mean, that's village property.
That's where I was headed.
Yeah, we could certainly do work on our property and then, lease them, or I don't know whether this area is already covered under, it's been a while since I looked at our lease, or actually I think maybe it's a license agreement. I can't even remember how exactly it's structured with the Railway Society.
Didn't we expand the area because we for the other cars already?
You were breaking up there a little bit, Basil.
We did that.
So I didn't catch the
I
beginning of
think
it.
I think we expanded the area.
Yeah, it
that
is
we're
what it
leasing
is.
to
I
them,
mean, we can look that up
when they put in the
easily.
cars. Yeah.
Yeah, we can look that up
Yeah.
easily enough. I just don't know sitting here right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Would you-
I guess what I'd like to, maybe we should talk to Ben about this offline, but what I'd like to offer them, seeing as it is our property, it is our park, but it is also to our benefit, would be to try and, see what DPW can do to help execute some of the site work that needs to be done to defray some of their costs, maybe even set up, if they have to, unearth the original alignment of the tracks or reinforce the tracks or whatever, maybe that's something we can do with labor and services, in kind, which can help defray their costs without actually giving them monetary value. And will likely come in at a significantly lower price point than the number I threw out.
that I think is a good idea.
Yeah, why don't I see what, I'll ask Marty Visciano, the site work that would need to be done in order to get this diesel there.
Yep.
And I'll have him like itemize it, and maybe we can look it over. Ben can look it over, obviously, and we can kind of go from there.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
start there and see what we can do.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so,
bring Ben
um,
into it, yeah.
So then since we're in that neighborhood, South Long rezoning, I saw the deeds for the separate properties.
Yep.
Yep, so they have been officially subdivided now. So now they're 3 separate parcels, which is good. Those have all been recorded. Judy, I don't know whether Judy, you sent those over to the town.
I did send them over to the town, so they've not gotten back to me yet with the new SBLs.
Yeah,
So as
so
soon
that's,
as I
I
get
think,
them, I'll let you know.
yep, so from the rezoning perspective, I mean, it's not absolutely essential, but it makes it cleaner and nicer if we get those SBL numbers assigned.
Mhm.
And then we just need to change the map. So Matt, I think you were gonna try to do that.
Yes. What was the issue there was trying to find the master file.
Oh, yeah, right. And I don't know if we ever found it, right?
And to my knowledge, we did not.
I think we were gonna maybe ask Judy or ask Linda if she knew. I don't know if you had a chance to do that.
I thought I did. And maybe Tim knows. Maybe he's got it somewhere.
I mean, we should have it. I don't have it.
Yeah. See, now,
I'll check with Tim.
Right.
yeah, I don't have access to the village server and I've never been shown how to log into it or anything like that. So, I wouldn't even know where to begin digging through and trying to find something like that. But
Yeah, it's not on our network server, but it might be on building department.
Yeah.
So I'll
if
check with
anyone
Tim.
has it, It's probably Tim is somewhere in the building department file buried, because we're gonna need it to update our zoning map on the website. We have a copy of it hanging right by the building department window, so we're gonna need to do that.
yeah, and we should just have it in general anyway.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
you're right.
so-
And we did change it 5
It
years
has been
ago.
changed before. Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah,
NMU was added.
I believe Brian changed it. Brian has no idea where the file is.
Yeah, right.
'Cause
I think
I
that's-
did ask Linda and Linda asked Brian.
Now that you mention it, I think that's right, because Brian did a lot of that NMU stuff himself, through his stage, at using the or whatever. So
Okay.
he did that, but he doesn't know where it is. So it's
Right.
ridiculous. I mean, we got to be able to find that thing. But,
Okay, so I have a PDF file that Ben sent me that was just the Bear Village parcels with address numbers on it. That's what I used as the background to create the historic properties map. I mean, if it makes sense to just embrace the horror and, do this effort again, I can just create a new zoning map.
yeah, you know what, Matt? God, I actually did just locate a file, but it's not a publisher file. Do you know what an MPK file is? I can't even open it, but I have something that's labeled Williamsville zoning map.mpk, but it's
Probably it.
my system does not. I'll forward it to you, Matt. Maybe you can
Maybe.
crack it. I don't know. I won't even recognize what that is on my computer.
Okay, well.
I don't even know. It was, all right. I'll send it over to you.
It's a map package.
Ooh, okay.
Whatever the heck that means.
All right,
So-
it's a big file. Are you gonna be able to
Yeah.
get that if I send it to your regular address?
Send it to my Hotmail account.
All right.
Okay, so then moving on, landscape
Real
code
quick,
rewrite.
before you hold on, real
Oh.
quick with the South Long rezoning. We had
Yeah.
talked about letting those owners of those properties that were being rezoned over there.
Yes,
Giving them like some notification that we were talking about this.
Yep.
And the only reason I want to do that is I want to, potentially head off any, future like accusations or lawsuits. We didn't know
Never.
about this, kind of like,
Right.
what we're dealing with on another issue now. So Is that something we're doing, or how do you feel about that, Matt?
I'm fine with that. I mean, it would be, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chip, but from a planning board point of view, there's no mandated notification, right? It's only ZBA.
There's no mandated notification under New York state law or under our code for rezoning. Yeah, our ZBA does mandate notice within a certain distance of, yeah, but we can do it.
Yeah, so I mean, so I guess my point is that we have a form letter already from the building department for like zoning actions that we can use and edit to reflect, you know, this planning board action, and address specifically to those properties that are included, that are not village properties that are included in that effort, and send those out. I say, let's just do it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And then just so, sorry, Matt, I'm sorry, I was trying to email that to you. It was too big for me even to email from our system. I'll have to try to send it through an FTP link.
Yeah, or a
I'll do that.
Dropbox or.
I'll do that later so I don't keep getting distracted. But yeah, and then just keep in mind the other procedural things we have to do before we can actually enact it is refer it to the planning board. We can do that, you know, anytime, even without the SBL numbers. I mean, it's just conceptually. And we need to refer it to the county if that hasn't happened already, and I don't think it has. So those are the other procedural steps to actually, and of course we have to continue the public hearing and then close the public hearing.
Right. So I would say we should pull the trigger on all of those steps right now. And who is taking the lead on making that happen?
Well, so the first thing is the letters. We have something, you know, a format from the building department letter that we use. Judy, is that something you want to have Tim tweak and kind of get to where it needs to be to send out to those property owners?
Yeah, probably. You
And
might
if you
have
want
something.
Yeah, if you want to have him send it to me and I'll look it over, that's fine.
Okay.
And maybe if you could, Judy, just mention to him that, you know, if he could do it, maybe even by the end of the week, just to kind of expedite and get things moving.
Okay.
Yeah, now what's planning schedule for their next meeting?
Well,
I believe it's August 3rd.
Okay.
Hold on one second.
Oh, can't be August 3rd. Oh, wait, yeah, I guess I could.
Monday, August 3rd, yeah.
Yeah, all right, right. I'm thinking of ZBA.
Oh,
Okay. So I'd like to get it on their agenda because I really think it's more of a formality than anything.
okay.
So for it to be on their agenda, it just needs to be in the public notice, right?
It doesn't, for the planning board you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta actually stop trying to fool around with this map thing. Sorry. I'll do that later, even though I already said that. Yeah, it really just needs to be, I mean, the public notice, this isn't a public hearing or anything for the planning board. So their meeting is just noticed on the village website, and I assume the B is notified of those meetings generally. So, you know, whatever's on the agenda, we usually post up on the website too before the meeting. So,
But it's not like there's not necessarily a time frame associated with that.
No.
Okay. So I guess the point is that, you know, if we can get this letter drafted and out by the end of the week, then there's plenty of notice for those property owners for attendance at the planning board on the 3rd if they wanted to hear the proceedings.
Right.
There isn't really a opportunity to speak at that meeting.
No, not unless the planning board wanted to
Right.
provide that, but there's
Right.
going to be a public hearing before the village board. It's really, purpose of the referral to the planning board is for them to make a recommendation. It's not necessarily for them to solicit public input. You
Right.
guys solicited public input through the public
Right.
hearing.
Right. So then I guess the point is that in that letter, then it should state what the procedure is that it's being, referred to the planning board for their, recommendation. And then we will be reopening the public hearing that was started on such and such a date on August, 24th?
That's the meeting.
If that's the meeting, yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
what makes sense.
And we'll close that loop then. And by that point, we theoretically, we should also be sending it to the county for whatever the heck they're doing. And then hopefully we'll have the SBL numbers even by that point, and we can close this loop.
Yep.
Okay, so then landscape code, we can skip by, we'll come back to that. Structures definition, I guess we gotta get back on that.
Yeah.
The demolition code revision, that was another notice issue. That was the conversation about those properties that are in the reconnaissance survey. So I guess it's sort of on me to draft that letter.
All right, yeah, I think on all of those 2 through 4, Matt, as we talked about last time, I think you and I just probably need to circle back and
Yeah,
talk
if
about
only we
those.
had time to,
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Well,
Okay.
if you work Sundays, like Keaton works on Sundays. You
I
guys
know,
have
I
time.
know. Sundays are my fun days,
Sunday, Monday.
All right, that's it for me.
All right, trustee Murphy's not with us tonight. Trustee Yates, you're up.
Yeah, it looks like the bit that's on old business is kind of what they're already kind of doing, or what I'd hope to do, or part of what I'd hope to do, just to bring about more cultural diversity in the village. So that's about all I have. I can't think of anything else that I have going on.
Chip, you don't have anything? Nope.
No, I mean, I already talked about you raised the issue about the meeting schedule. I mean, again, I'll just repeat that we have to be ready for whatever changes get, issued out of the governor's office and just be ready to respond to those things as they come.
Oh, on that note, Judy did order the temperature checker, didn't you do? Did we talk about that?
I ordered forehead, the thermometers.
Yeah.
I didn't get the $2,000 one.
That's fine. Just so we do have thermometers either coming or they're here.
Well, they're in.
Okay, so we have that. We've got plenty of hand sanitizer here. Everybody's got to bring their own face mask. I guess we may have some extras that if people do forget, we could just give them one. So I think, we're starting to really think and cover our bases, and, we'll see where that all goes.
We could also, Jim Semanek from the emergency operations,
Yeah.
he may have some extra masks for us as well. So
Okay.
if we need some, we can probably reach out to Jim and he can arrange some for us.
Yeah, definitely. We will. So we'll see what happens. And
Okay.
Judy, the Amherst Senior Center use.
Yeah, they called me. They're interested in using the pavilion on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the rest of July, and Tuesdays and Fridays in August, except for August 14th, because the pavilion is rented that day, for seniors to get out and have some activities to do. They'd be there like from 9 to 2.
I love it.
So I told them I would just check with the board to see if it was okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Mhm.
Judy,
They
it's
said-
Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Tuesdays and Thursdays for the rest of July. And then Tuesdays and Fridays in August, except for, I think it's August 14th, if that's a Friday.
Mhm.
Correct, yes. That's the one.
And I told her they would have to just get us a certificate of insurance.
Yep.
So, anybody have any objection?
No, it's good.
Well, had they already checked with the, whatever schedule we might have for people using it?
Yes. Yes, we have nothing scheduled
That's
at
just
all.
during the day anyway, right?
Right, 9 to 2.
Okay. All right.
Yep. That's all I have.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Ben's not with us. Keaton, you're up.
Actually, we covered the WBA and WRP. Really don't have any updates there either. Chip, have you been able to kind of take a?
No, and I don't have an update from where we were before, and I apologize, I didn't respond to that email you sent me a couple days
It's
ago.
okay.
Yet, but yeah, as I said last time, we really, to try to close that loop on that strange decision, I think we'd like to get over and pull the original papers on that action, which
Mhm.
are most likely buried in the basement somewhere of County Hall. So, and for a while, there was really no practical way to get over there and do that. So we got to check to see whether we can get access to those papers.
Okay. All right. All right. I'll let Wendy know that. And that's all I had.
Okay. Okay, so we've got 5 minutes until the board meeting starts. So what is it, everyone take a quick break and we'll reconvene in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay? All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I got a 5-minute break. Oh, you're at work? Yeah. I wanted to ask you something.
I can still hear you, Judy.
What?
I can still hear you.
Oh, sorry, I'm talking to my daughter. I'm gonna go get a drink. Because I'm on work, but I'm on vacation, so I'm gonna have a cocktail.
Hey, this is all being recorded for posterity.
I know. All right. Oh. You could bring me a drink. Yeah. I have no idea what time it is. Interesting.